Welcome to Edify, Balanced and Brilliant. This session explores how to intentionally design a classroom climate that balances structure, accountability, and strong relationships. Classroom climate is the feeling students experience every day when they walk into your classroom. It is more than the physical environment. It is the emotional atmosphere that shapes how students feel about themselves, their peers, and their learning experiences. Classroom climate is influenced by the relationships teachers build with students, the interactions students have with one another, and the shared expectations that guide behavior and learning. It is reflected in the daily experiences students have, from how they are greeted at the door to how mistakes are handled and successes are celebrated. When students feel respected, valued, and connected, they are more likely to participate, take academic risks, and engage meaningfully in learning. Conversely, when students feel disconnected or unsafe, learning can become much more difficult. A positive classroom climate helps every student feel safe, supported, and ready to learn. It creates a foundation where students can build confidence, develop relationships, and achieve their full potential, both academically and socially. There is an important distinction between classroom management and classroom climate. While these terms are often used together, they are not the same thing. Management is about what you do. It includes the rules, procedures, routines, and systems that create consistency and structure within the classroom. Effective management helps students understand expectations and provides a predictable environment where learning can take place. Climate, on the other hand, is about how students feel. It is shaped by the relationships we build, the tone we set, and the interactions that occur every day. Students may follow classroom procedures, but if they do not feel respected, valued, or connected, the classroom climate may still be negative. Strong classrooms require both. Management creates order and organization, while climate creates belonging and trust. One establishes the structure for learning, and the other creates the emotional conditions that make learning possible. As educators, our goal is to build classrooms where expectations are clear, relationships are strong, and students feel safe taking risks, asking questions, and making mistakes. When effective management and a positive climate work together, students are more engaged, more motivated, and better prepared for academic success. One style to avoid is authoritarian classroom management style. In this approach, the teacher maintains a high level of control and makes most decisions regarding classroom expectations, behavior, and procedures. Authoritarian classrooms are built on strict rules and clear, non-negotiable expectations. Students are expected to follow directions, comply with established procedures, and meet behavioral standards. Because expectations are clearly defined, this style often creates a highly structured and predictable environment. The primary focus is on compliance and maintaining order. Teachers using this approach typically direct behavior, determine classroom procedures, and closely monitor student actions. For some students, this level of structure can provide a sense of security and clarity because expectations are consistent and well understood. However, one potential limitation of an authoritarian approach is that students may have fewer opportunities to contribute ideas, make choices, or develop ownership of the learning environment. Student voice and autonomy can sometimes be reduced when decision-making remains primarily in the teacher's hands. While structure and consistency are important elements of effective classroom management, educators must also consider how to balance control with opportunities for student engagement, independence, and relationship building. As we continue exploring classroom management styles, consider both the strengths and challenges of this approach and how it may influence student learning and classroom climate. Another style to avoid is the permissive classroom management style. In this approach, the teacher places a strong emphasis on building positive relationships, creating a welcoming atmosphere, and ensuring students feel comfortable and supported. Permissive classrooms are often characterized by high levels of warmth, empathy, and acceptance. Teachers who use this style work hard to develop strong connections with students and create an environment where students feel heard, valued, and respected. As a result, relationships are often a significant strength of this approach. However, while relationships are important, effective classrooms also require structure. In a permissive classroom, rules and expectations may be loosely enforced, and consequences may be inconsistent. Without clear boundaries, students can sometimes become unsure of expectations, leading to confusion, off-task behavior, or challenges with accountability. Students generally enjoy being in these environments because they feel supported and cared for. However, when structure is limited, some students may struggle with self-regulation or lack the guidance they need to be successful academically and behaviorally. This management style reminds us that positive relationships are essential, but relationships alone are not enough. The most effective classrooms balance warmth with structure, support with accountability, and kindness with clear expectations. As we continue examining classroom management styles, consider how educators can maintain strong relationships while also providing the consistency students need to thrive. The authoritative classroom management style is one in which research consistently identifies as one of the most effective approaches for supporting both academic achievement and positive student behavior. An authoritative classroom combines clear expectations with strong relationships. Students understand what is expected of them, why those expectations exist, and how those expectations contribute to a successful learning environment. The teacher provides structure and guidance while also valuing student voice, input, and individual needs. A key characteristic of this style is the emphasis on mutual respect. Teachers build positive relationships with students based on trust, care, and consistency. Students feel supported because they know their teacher is invested in both their success and their well-being. Authoritative teachers also use fair and predictable consequences. When problems arise, the focus is not simply on punishment, but on helping students learn from mistakes, take responsibility, and grow. Accountability is balanced with support, creating an environment where students can develop both independence and self-discipline. This approach recognizes that students thrive when they experience both high expectations and high levels of support. They know the boundaries, but they also know they have a teacher who believes in them and is willing to help them succeed. As we examine different classroom management styles, the authoritative approach often emerges as the most balanced model because it combines the structure students need with the relationships they deserve. The result is a classroom where students feel safe, supported, challenged, and motivated to learn. The 5 principles of restorative practices, an approach that focuses on building relationships, strengthening community, and addressing challenges in ways that promote growth rather than simply assigning punishment. The first principle is relationships. Strong relationships are the foundation of restorative practices. When students feel connected to their teachers and peers, they are more likely to engage positively, take responsibility for their actions, and contribute to a supportive learning environment. The second principle is respect. Restorative classrooms value every voice and encourage active listening. Students learn that different perspectives, experiences, and opinions deserve consideration and understanding. Respect becomes something that is practiced daily rather than simply expected. The third principle is responsibility. Restorative practices encourage students to take ownership of their choices and understand how their actions affect themselves, others, and the broader classroom community. The goal is accountability that promotes learning and personal growth. The fourth principle is repair. When harm occurs, the focus shifts from punishment alone to repairing relationships and rebuilding trust. Students are guided to recognize the impact of their actions, make amends when appropriate, and restore connections within the community. The fifth principle is reintegration. After mistakes have been addressed and efforts have been made to repair harm, students are welcomed back into the classroom community. Restorative practices recognize that everyone makes mistakes and that every student deserves the opportunity to learn, grow, and continue belonging. Together, these five principles help create classrooms where students feel valued, respected, and connected. By focusing on relationships, accountability, and community, restorative practices foster stronger classroom climates, safer learning environments, and more positive outcomes for all students. They reduce repeat behaviors and strengthen relationships. Restorative questions help a child save face. They are free from a predetermined resolution. They are inclusive. Everyone involved can answer them. Everyone can express their feelings and needs. These questions are focused on people and the impact of the behavior. Excellent classroom management is one that recognizes and values the diverse backgrounds, experiences, and identities students bring into the classroom. Rather than expecting all students to fit into a single model of behavior or communication, culturally responsive educators seek to understand and build upon students' unique strengths. The first component is recognizing cultural differences. Students come to school with different experiences, traditions, communication styles, and perspectives. Effective teachers understand that these differences are assets that can enrich the learning environment rather than challenges that need to be corrected. The second component is examining bias. Every educator brings personal experiences and assumptions into the classroom. Culturally responsive management requires ongoing reflection about how our perceptions, expectations, and decisions may influence the way we interact with students. By recognizing and addressing biases, we can create more equitable opportunities for all learners. The third component is including diverse perspectives. Students should see themselves reflected in classroom discussions, materials, examples, and learning experiences. When diverse voices and experiences are valued, students develop a stronger sense of belonging and engagement. The image on this slide provides a powerful reminder that every student has roots that extend beyond the classroom. Those roots represent family traditions, cultural identities, life experiences, values, and personal histories. While we may only see what is above the surface, those deeper experiences shape how students learn, communicate, and interact with others. Culturally responsive management helps educators move beyond managing behavior to truly understanding students. When students feel seen, respected, and valued for who they are more likely to engage in learning, build positive relationships, and contribute meaningfully to the classroom community. Awareness helps ensure fairness and equity in discipline. Effective classroom management begins with understanding child and adolescent development. Before we interpret a behavior as defiance, disrespect, or lack of motivation, it is important to consider what is developmentally appropriate for the student's age and stage of growth. The first consideration is age-related behaviors. Students at different developmental levels have different needs, abilities, and challenges. Younger students may struggle with impulse control, while older students may be seeking greater independence and peer acceptance. Understanding these developmental characteristics helps educators respond with appropriate expectations and support. The second consideration is emotional regulation skills. Not all students have fully developed the ability to manage frustration, disappointment, anxiety, or excitement. Emotional regulation is a skill that develops over time and requires practice, guidance, and support. When students struggle emotionally, they often need teaching and coaching rather than immediate consequences. The third consideration is executive functioning. Executive functioning includes skills such as organization, planning, attention, time management, task initiation, and self-monitoring. Many behaviors that appear to be laziness, lack of effort, or noncompliance may actually reflect challenges with executive functioning. Students cannot always do what they have not yet learned how to do. As educators, shifting our perspective from "what's wrong with this student" to "what developmental skill might this student still be learning" can transform our response to behavior. This mindset encourages empathy, problem solving, and targeted support rather than punishment alone. When we understand development, emotional regulation, and executive functioning, we are better equipped to create classrooms that meet students where they are while helping them grow into where they need to be. Effective classroom management is not simply about controlling behavior. It is about supporting student development. Effective teachers combine warmth and firmness. Consistency builds trust. This balance of warmth and firmness creates a psychological holding environment where students feel safe enough to take risks, but structured enough to stay focused. Warm teachers acknowledge a student's feelings and perspectives. They use positive body language, eye contact, and active listening, and this fosters an environment where students feel validated. Teachers' care for the student isn't dependent on their performance or behavior that day. If a student has a bad day, the warm teacher signals that the relationship is still intact. When students feel liked and respected, their brains move out of survival mode, fight or flight, and into learning mode. They are more willing to admit they don't understand a concept because they don't fear being shamed. Balance in a classroom is intentional. It protects instructional time while preserving dignity. The most successful classroom environments are neither overly strict nor overly permissive. Instead, they find a balance between structure and support, accountability and empathy, consistency and flexibility. The first element of balance is establishing non-negotiables. Every classroom should have a small number of clear expectations that are consistently upheld. These expectations create predictability and help students understand the boundaries that support a safe and productive learning environment. The second element is structured flexibility. While expectations should remain clear, educators must also recognize that students are individuals with different needs, experiences, and circumstances. Effective teachers know when to maintain expectations and when to provide reasonable accommodations, support, or alternative pathways to success. The third element is using calm consequences. Consequences are most effective when they are predictable, respectful, and focused on learning rather than punishment. Students should understand that mistakes are opportunities for growth and that accountability can occur without anger, embarrassment, or power struggles. Balance is not about being perfect. It is about making intentional decisions that support both student growth and classroom expectations. Effective classroom management is not a single strategy or program. It is a collection of practices that work together to create a learning environment where students feel supported while also being held accountable. When educators establish clear non-negotiables, provide structured flexibility, and respond with calm consequences, they create classrooms where students can feel safe, respected, challenged, and successful. That balance is often where the most meaningful learning takes place. Classroom management is not about controlling students. It is about creating the conditions that allow students to succeed academically, socially, and emotionally. The goal is to establish an environment where students feel safe enough to take risks, supported enough to persevere, and accountable enough to grow. As you reflect on everything we have explored, from classroom climate and management styles to restorative practices, culturally responsive teaching, and student development, consider how you can create your own balanced approach. The most effective classrooms are not copies of someone else's system. They are intentionally designed by educators who understand their students and remain committed to continuous growth. Thank you for your dedication to creating learning environments where all students can thrive. By balancing high expectations with meaningful support, you have the opportunity to shape not only student achievement, but also students' confidence, belonging, and lifelong love of learning. Thank you for learning with Edify.